Strong words today from Chinese President Xi, promising to turn his country's military into a Great Wall of Steel to protect interests abroad and at home.
Foreign correspondent Patrick Falk has more from Beijing. Patrick.
Well, even if it wasn't intended for an international audience, this address today certainly will have served as a warning shot to the US and its allies, the UK and Australia included, particularly as that grouping gets together in San Diego to discuss this nuclear submarine deal under the AUKUS scheme. But the speech was definitely targeted at a domestic audience, particularly when you look at the language that was used. It was reminiscent of the speech that President Xi Jinping made during the 100th anniversary of the Communist Party, when he warned that anyone that tried to bully China would have their heads smashed against a great wall of Chinese steel. So this was certainly intended to rouse nationalistic sentiments, and importantly, he also talked about how stability was the foundation for development and security was a prerequisite for prosperity. And these ideas really have been used as justification for his power consolidation, which is what this past week has largely been about. Notably also today, the new Premier Li Chang talked at length about an improving business environment for the private sector and said that all companies would be treated equally. Remember, he is tasked with kick-starting the world's second largest economy. But some of the words that he said were in contrast with what Xi Jinping said. He also talked about private companies needing to share the fruits of development. And he used that term, common prosperity, as well, which will perhaps have been a little bit of a concern for investors. And there is a little bit of a conflicting message, but how this all plays out will largely hinge, one imagines, on this big shakeup of the Chinese government. Back to you.
Patrick Falk, thank you. And joining us to discuss, the author of the books The Coming Collapse of China and the Great U.S.-China Tech War, Gordon Chang, and retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General and Newsmax contributor Blaine Holt. Great to have both of you with us. General Holt, your reaction to what we're just hearing there about China and Xi?
Yeah, I think it's great to be with you all, but I would say that right now what we're watching is Xi Jinping has solidified his gain. He is firmly now emperor for life. Any semblance of legitimacy is just not even there. But what we should now see is that they're very, very quickly changing the chapter. They're upping the game. He is much more militaristic in his comments. He openly now antagonizes the United States, and they're taking their game to the next level with arrangements like you see between Iran and Saudi. They're going to be menacing in Asia, and quite frankly, they're having their way with us here from an espionage and a border sovereignty aspect.
Yeah. Gordon, you've written that China's Xi now talks about going to war all the time. And, you know, General Holt was just talking about that, that they're getting stronger. They're more of a power than they were on any level you could measure, I would argue. What should we be doing? Because it seems like this administration doesn't take this threat very seriously.
No, the Biden team doesn't take it seriously, and they don't have a sense of urgency. You know, as General Holt just said, Xi Jinping has cleared out his political opponents, and that means he's no longer hearing moderate voices that would rein him in from what he wants to do, which is military misadventure abroad. And he's been fueled by this extreme ideological resentment of the United States. He has no respect for us, as we saw from the spy balloon traveling over our country. Also by his selection as a defense minister, someone who's been under U.S. sanctions since 2018. So the Chinese regime right now believes it can do whatever it wants, which means it's going to do something extremely provocative. We are going to have to defend ourselves, and this is going to be extremely, extremely dangerous.
General Holt, so is China's ultimate goal to be the dominant world superpower? And if so, do you think that the United States is strong enough under this current administration to prevent that from happening?
Well, this may sound a little bit provocative, Katrina, but what I would say is not only is that China's goal, I would say that right now, the United States is either wittingly or unwittingly complicit in that goal. We absolutely now have to reassess our relationship to China. We've got to examine on both sides of the aisle relationships to China at every single level and find out where compromise exists, because China's playing for keeps here. And we don't really seem to be finding our way to any kind of strategy that's going to deter that.
Yeah, and Gordon, here's what scares me. Obviously, a military threat is one thing that we have to take seriously, even though the administration doesn't seem to. But it seems like there's already an asymmetrical war going on, that there are cyber attacks, that the balloon is just, I get the feeling that wasn't an accident, that there are many levels. We've got TikTok collecting information that they will use in some fashion down the road. And again, it sounds silly, but it's not. It's a real threat. Give me your feel about that. Are we in a war that we don't even know we're in it?
Well, yes. I mean, in May 2019, People's Daily actually declared a quote-unquote people's war on us. People's Daily is the mouthpiece of the Communist Party. It is China speaking. They have this doctrine of unrestricted warfare. And to add to all the things that you mentioned, there's fentanyl. In China's total surveillance state, the Communist Party knows what the fentanyl gangs are doing. The fentanyl gangs even launder their profits through the Chinese state banking system. And that means that the 80 or so thousand Americans who died from doses of illegal Chinese fentanyl last year, we should consider them to be murdered. And we should be taking actions which are appropriate to defend our country and to impose costs on China so that Beijing stops killing Americans.
All right, Gordon Chang, General Blaine Holt, thank you so much.
Great to be
Thank you.